Hey B-Siders, welcome to another episode of Bravo for the B-Side. This is Jim.
This is Danny.
And we have a really good movie this week. It qualifies as a B movie because it was never released in the US.
Right.
It's on Prime. So, I guess technically that counts, a VOD release, but it never saw a theatrical release here. So we're going to go ahead and include it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not only that, we wanted to. So criteria be damned.
We'll just move around our criteria so that we can, talk about whatever movie we want to talk about.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should. Why don't we go over what this is so we can talk a little bit more about why we're doing it without giving it away, thus having to go over what it is.
Okay.
Take it away.
Sure. Okay.
I thought you were doing you said you were doing the movie info.
Yeah. You said not giving it away.
No. So we can do the movie info and then talk about it. If we talk about it, we're just going to give it away. And we don't need to do the movie info.
So the movie that we watched this week.
Making this so hard.
Is called I'm Talking Now. It's called Danger Close. It was made in 2019. Directed by Cliff Stenders. Written by quite a lot of writers on this project.
Mm-hmm.
Stuart Beattie, James Nicholas, Karel Seegers, I hope I didn't butcher that, Paul Sullivan, and Jack Brisley. Starring, and this is what caught me, why this movie caught my attention, honestly.
Well, yeah, both of us.
Yeah, Travis Fimmel, who's a phenomenal actor.
Mm-hmm.
Stars in the series Vikings.
Well, starred.
Yeah, till his character left the series.
The inevitable doom.
Right. Travis Fimmel. Yeah, just fantastic. Toby Blome, Alexander England, Aaron Glenane, and Ali Latukefu. It was rated R.
Mm-hmm.
For gore, I would imagine.
Well, violence and
yeah. The budget was 35 million Australian. And here's the plot to this movie. In August 1966, in a Vietnamese rubber plantation called Long Tan, 108 young and inexperienced Australian and New Zealand soldiers are fighting for their lives against 2,500 North Vietnamese and Viet Cong soldiers. It's a war movie.
It is. And if anybody's wondering, it is a true story.
Yes.
And that is one of the chief reasons. I mean, we both, eyed this up because of Travis Fimmel. We're like, ooh, Ragnar Lothbrok.
Yeah.
He's gone, but Travis lives on, and we like his work, right?
Oh, he's fantastic.
But the other thing was that this is a true story, and for me, I am all about true stories. There are movies like Full Metal Jacket, which actually make me laugh through most of it, as it does a lot of people. Some people don't get why it's so funny, but if you've been there in those environments, some of that shit is funny, right? But a lot of it is a lot of Vietnam era movies in particular, and they were really big for a while. Because we had Full Metal Jacket, we had Platoon, so many other movies, big and small. Some were actually B movies, studio funded B movies, right? So they had good money. And then, like everything else, they fell out of favor. Okay. But a lot of these stories were amalgams of experiences and just kind of a mishmash of what people in general went through over there in Vietnam. Now, obviously I was 4 years old when Vietnam was over, so I don't know anything about it firsthand. But, a lot of members of my family have served, and I did, and had a lot of friends who served and their parents served. So there's,
I come from a family of service members.
yeah, there's a long history
Yeah.
of, first person accounts. When I was a kid, in elementary, middle school, I was in the library reading war books. Like I told you when we were talking about it, I read Lord of the Rings. I read, iRobot and Hobbit and all of this stuff because I was a geek. But in between each and every one of those, I was heavily into documentary books, history books. What happened? What was, storm the beaches of Normandy? What happened on D-Day?
Right.
Right? Because we have movies, and most people, oddly, even at like 11 years old, I knew there were several stages of engagement in the operation. A lot of things happened, all very different stories.
Yeah, I mean, as an adult, I just recently came to understand like what exactly went on.
Right, because it's not
on
talk.
D-Day.
It's globally, or it's put in this big globe.
Yeah.
They give it a spin. Okay, now that we've gone around, there you go. Top down kind of look at it. But I really wanted to know what this was all about for a lot of reasons. One, because, I wanted to see what these people in my family had experienced. Wanted to know the truth. I grew up with John Wayne movies, Green Beret, and just, all those 60s movies and early 70s films that they were what they were. Some of them were classics because they're really well done.
Oh, yeah.
But the stories are not accurate as to what really happened.
Well, they're a little bit glamorized.
Right.
For film.
Yeah. So I had, stories of people serving in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and different places in World War II. It's not enough to just say World War II, different theaters. So yeah, the reason this wrong is because this was a true story and it was a small story. Yeah. Right.
And one that I had never heard about.
Well, right. Because this is Australian. So this is 3 years before I was born. Mm-hmm. This is Australian and New Zealand soldiers fighting in Vietnam.
Right.
And everybody had their hands in it, in 66.
Well,
right?
yeah.
The Brits were there. We were there. These guys were there. There was a lot of reasons. I'm not going to get into it in the podcast.
Well, but, as an American, I've never seen a movie about Vietnam that wasn't primarily about American soldiers in Vietnam.
Right. And well, as the same thing with World War II, we talk about all the American losses and stuff, but we got to understand these things happen on such a larger scale that, even when we talk about these movies that we have about people in Afghanistan and the things that went on in the 90s and stuff, you don't realize that there were other countries there and they suffered losses and things were ugly. So my whole point of this, wanting to do this episode, one, because this is a story, it was a true story and it's a story that needs to be told because it's a small story. And that will become very evident why it's a small story at the very end of when we get done talking about the movie. I don't want to say it right now because it's one of the last lines that we wrote in our notes, And then I'm going to have some things to talk about, but that's why we're doing it. And you think 35 million, holy shit, that's a lot of money. Well, it is.
But not necessarily for,
a movie on this scale in the U.S. would cost at least twice that, if not 3 times.
Yeah.
This is a super big scale film. Super well done. We'll just come out and say that up front.
Oh, yeah.
I know you're going to mention it in a couple spots.
Yeah. Technically and scenically, it's gorgeously done.
Yeah. So if you're not a war movie type person, suck it up and keep listening anyway. Because number one, I don't think it does anyone any harm to watch a movie like this, even if you're not into it, because I think you're doing honor to these people and I think they deserve it. To have their story told and be seen in this, medium. Yeah. But also there's going to be a lot of technical stuff that, you're going to want to cling on to. So you're going to want to watch this. You're going to want to listen to what we're going to talk about and, put the two together and see how, oh yeah, goddamn, that's brilliant.
Oh yeah.
That is gorgeous. That is, and I don't mean just vistas.
Well, no.
Right.
I mean, we talk about it as we go through it, but one of the main, lessons taken from this movie, particularly this movie, is how you talk about many things happening at once
Yes.
in a film.
Yes. Because in any war situation, it's never just, cut and dry,
Right.
guy here, guy there. And then we spend 2 hours, they're going back and forth at each other. It's a complicated thing,
Right.
But it's also beautiful in the technical, the acting, the writing.
Yeah.
The writing and the acting. The technical is brilliant, but without the writing and acting that are in this, it would have just been a technically proficient empty film.
And the pace.
Excellent pace.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was true to life.
There's no, it's not a slow build up. It's you're in it from the start and until the end. You're,
It's a good example if you want to do a story on how quick shit can go sideways.
Yeah.
Even when shit's already gone sideways. Right? Because because it goes this way doesn't mean, oh, fuck, no, there's many more opportunities for shit to off a different direction.
Yeah.
So with that,
why don't you bring us in?
Yes. Let's get on to this thing. Get it going. Talk to some people and say, hey, man, if we could get a paycheck.
Right.
Right. That would pay for this. Would you do it with me? Sign them up, get them on board. Right. And then work towards it. And like I said, if you have to hand it off to somebody else who does have the money, do it. Because the important thing here, sometimes making a movie, writing a script to tell a story is more about telling the story than getting your name in the credits.
Yeah.
And this shit's important right now.
It is.
I think we need to see how dark shit can get and how people can still come through it. And we need to believe in that. 40 something years later.
I think that one of the most important lessons that I ever learned, and it's not just relevant to filmmaking, but it's relevant to everything, really, is that the stories that we tell ourselves, the way we narrate our reality, is as important as what is happening. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
And by that, I mean, you can say, oh, my life is shit. I don't have any money. I'm, this whole situation sucks, right? I don't have a job and I don't know what's going on, for the next couple months. The way that you tell yourself, the way that you narrate what your story is going to have a dramatic and immediate effect on the quality of your life in general. Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, a person who gets into an accident and becomes paralyzed from the waist down can tell themselves, oh, I lost my legs and now my life is shit. Right? Or they can tell themselves, I had this unique experience. Right? And it wasn't great. Obviously, I'd love to, walk. But what I can do with that experience is I can educate people with it. I can tell my story to other people. I can use my experience to make a difference in other people's lives.
And that's what it absolutely comes down to. There are people out there who are having a real hard time with what's going on. I shake it off, and I'm like, on this level up here, I just don't get how this is such a big deal. Okay. But then you start, that's just like a quick top thing, because for me, big deal. I could be locked in this fucking place for, 11 months without even going outside for groceries. They could bring them to the door. I'm good. Right. But then you just, take a second, take a breath, start stepping down that ladder, get into the deeper levels. There's a lot of things people aren't built to just shrug shit off. There are certain aspects about it. And it gets down to a point where my own narration, so you get to that bottom rung, that's where you find your narrative.
Yeah.
That's what's propelling you. And then I think, So I was laying in a bed, not knowing if I'd ever walk again. I had a lot of people telling me, I don't know, I found myself reaching back to fucking movies like Chariots of Fire. I found myself reaching back to documentaries I had, because this is, 80s, right?
Yeah.
Or, early 90s. All I had were 80s films, because in the 70s, there wasn't really anything super inspirational.
Right.
It was the era of disco. But I found myself reaching out to those films and books that I'd read about these things, the underdog, the finding hope when the spirit is just fucking crushed. I was looking to other people's narratives to help rebuild my own.
Mm-hmm.
Because where do you go when nobody gives you any answers? And you don't even know enough about what's going on to ask the right questions.
Right.
Right. And then when you do, you don't understand any of what the answer is, because half of it's bullshit, but through it all, it's not just willpower and determination that got me out of that fucking bed and walking again. It's finding that hope and, something to cling to in what other people have talked about, their narratives, because Chariots of Fire is based on a true story. Documentaries on people who were disabled and became, decathlon winners and stuff. And, that was happening a lot. Yeah. And occasionally they'd make something up about it, or make a film or, do this book about it. But you're absolutely right. Your narrative could eventually reach somebody.
Well,
and help them.
It's the story that you tell yourself about your life. And I mean, if it helps nobody else but yourself, that's enough.
Well, right.
Right?
Yeah.
If you are struggling right now with everything that's going on, if you are having a creative blockage, right, which a lot of people are having right now.
Yes.
It's a depressing fucking time.
Well, it is.
In a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
But in a lot of other ways, it's an extremely hopeful time, and it's a time of dramatic change. Mm-hmm. And it's a time where people are realizing what is actually important to them. Mm-hmm. And you could tell yourself that this time's terrible because I can't, go visit my grandma. I can't go, see my family. I can't hang out with my friends. Life isn't the same as it was, and that upsets me. Mm-hmm. Or you can say, this situation has forced us to look at life in a different way. And what is coming out of it could potentially and hopefully be better than what there was before.
Right.